My name is Ricardo, I'm 58 years old, and I've dedicated my entire life to my children. Since I lost my wife far too soon, my eldest daughter, Camila, became my greatest pride, my piece of hope in the middle of chaos. It was years of struggle, waking up at 5 in the morning, driving trucks late into the night, giving up on personal dreams, all so my 2 daughters could have a better life than mine. Camila grew up watching my sacrifices. She always told me, "Dad, when I get married, you'll walk me down the aisle. It'll be our moment." That promise kept me standing on the hardest days. When she got engaged, I didn't think twice. I opened my savings, took out a loan, and invested 150,000 reais to give her the wedding of her dreams. I was there in every detail. I was the one signing the checks for the expensive catering. I was the one renting the luxurious venue she wanted so badly. I was the one staying late, helping pick out flowers, decorations, invitations. Every cent paid with my heart, because for me it was more than a wedding. It was proof of my love as a father. Then, 10 days before the big day, I received the email. The subject line was simple: about the wedding. I opened it with a smile, imagining it was a thank you, or maybe a reminder of some detail I had forgotten. But what I found froze me. "Dad, don't come to my wedding. I've decided it will be an intimate moment just for me, my fiancé, and a few close guests. I want you to respect my decision and watch through the live stream. I hope you understand." I read it 3 times, 10 times. My heart started pounding like a drum in my chest. My hands were sweating. Me, the man who paid for every detail, the father who never failed, was being banned from the most important day of my daughter's life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, reliving every moment of our history. The first time I held her in my arms, the little note she used to leave on my bedroom door saying, "I love you, Dad," the time she cried on my shoulder over the loves that hurt her. And now, she cut me off with the coldness of a few lines typed in an email. Deep down, something told me it wasn't just her decision. The fiancé, the mother-in-law, someone must have been behind it. Camila wasn't that cruel, but if she was, if this truly came from her, maybe I had never really known the daughter I thought I raised. The next morning, I put on the old jacket I used for work and went to the wedding hall. The contract was still in my name. I walked in as if I still had some right there. I walked between the chairs, touched the flowers already being tested by the decorators, and felt a wave of anger and sadness wash over me. I had paid for everything, but I was being treated like an intruder. In that moment, standing inside that empty hall, I swore I would not be erased. I didn't yet know how, but the entire world would see that Ricardo was not a man to be discarded. I spent the next 3 days like a ghost in my own house. I barely ate, barely spoke to anyone. I just replayed that email in my head over and over again. The words burned me, like they had been carved into my chest with a knife. But the more I read it, the less it felt like my daughter. Camila was many things: stubborn, ambitious, sometimes even selfish. But cold? Cruel? No, that wasn't her. The phrasing of the email was too formal, too detached. It sounded like something copied from a manual, not written by the same girl who once scribbled "I love you, Daddy" on napkins when she was 8. That thought gave me strength. If this wasn't truly her, then someone was pulling the strings. And if someone was pulling the strings, I would find out who. The first place I went was the wedding planner's office. She was a polished woman with a fake smile that never reached her eyes. When she saw me walk in, her expression stiffened, like she wasn't expecting me. "Mr. Giert," she said carefully, "I wasn't aware you had an appointment." I leaned forward on her desk. "I'm not here for an appointment. I'm here for answers. Who decided I shouldn't be at my own daughter's wedding?" Her eyes flickered, just for a moment. That microsecond of hesitation told me more than any words could. She knew. "I only execute the bride and groom's wishes," she replied smoothly. Camila and Eduardo agreed on this together. Eduardo, the fiancé. I clenched my jaw. He had always seemed polite, but there was something about him, too polished, too perfect, like a man rehearsing a role. That night, I went through my daughter's old phone messages. She had once left her laptop at my house by mistake, and the password had never been changed. My hands trembled as I opened her email, and there it was, the email that had shattered me. But when I looked closely, the sender wasn't Camila's personal account. It was one created just weeks earlier, with her name but a different extension. It was Eduardo. He had forged the email. The discovery hit me like a thunderclap. My daughter hadn't pushed me away, her fiancé had, and she didn't even know. I wanted to call her immediately, scream the truth into the phone, but something held me back. If Eduardo was capable of this kind of manipulation, what else was he hiding? What else had he convinced her of? If I confronted her now, she might not believe me. She might think I was just being paranoid, or worse, she might turn even further against me. No, I couldn't rush this. If I was going to expose Eduardo, I needed proof. I needed to be careful, so I started to watch him. I followed him when he left work, keeping my distance. I saw him meet with a man in a dark suit at a hotel lobby, too secretive for business, too tense for friendship. I watched him slip an envelope across the table. I saw him on the phone late at night, pacing in front of the apartment window while Camila was asleep. His expression was hard, nothing like the charming smile he wore during family dinners. And once, I caught him slipping into the office of the wedding planner long after it was closed. Piece by piece, Eduardo's mask was cracking. But the worst moment came 2 nights later. I was parked outside their apartment, hidden in the shadows, when I saw him through the window. He wasn't alone. He was with another woman. Not Camila. She was younger, dressed elegantly, her hand caressing his cheek as he kissed her like she was the only woman in the world. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Fury boiled inside me, but I stayed still, forcing myself to breathe. It wasn't enough to know the truth. I needed to destroy him in a way no one could deny. The wedding was in 1 week. 1 week until Eduardo would stand at the altar, lie to my daughter, and bind her to a man who didn't deserve her. And 1 week until he thought I'd be watching quietly from a screen at home. He had no idea what was coming, because if he wanted me out of the wedding, fine, I wouldn't just attend. I would steal the spotlight. And when I did, the truth would burn his perfect little empire to the ground. For 3 days I moved like a man possessed. The discovery that Eduardo had forged the email changed everything, not just my anger, but my strategy. I could have stormed in and started shouting accusations, but that would only make me look unstable. Proof was the only language that could cut through a rehearsed smile and a room full of polite applause. I needed allies. Finding the quiet helpers first, I went back to the wedding planner. This time I didn't stomp in, I walked in calm, polite, the wealthy client they expected, a mask I could wear when I needed to. I complimented her choices, asked for a favor about one small technical detail for the live stream. She obliged, reciprocating with the same surface courtesy. Then I threaded in the question that mattered: who pays the tech team for the live stream? She hesitated. The smallest crack. It's usually the planner, she said. But this time, Eduardo handled the arrangements. That told me 2 things. 1, Eduardo controlled the flow of information, and 2, there was a place to plant proof, the live stream itself. If I could get the tech on my side, a live reveal would be uneditable, undeniable. I left a generous tip and a veiled comment about how much I wanted the day to be perfect for Camila. The planted seed, money plus ego, would later be useful. Next, I found Carlos, a cousin of mine who used to run security at the mall. He still did odd security gigs and owed me a favor. I took him the files I'd found on Eduardo, the forged email header, the strange hotel receipts, photos of Eduardo slipping envelopes. I told him bluntly, I need someone to watch, not to scare my daughter, to watch him. He didn't ask many questions. If he's using the tech, Carla said, we'll get the tech to give us a backup. Live stream is the best place, no edits, no lies. We agreed on 3 things: A secondary recording of the live stream must exist, B, a short, undeniable clip of Eduardo and the other woman must be ready to play, and C, someone must be able to present the evidence so it couldn't be dismissed as a stunt. Planting the camera, I started with the most boring, least romantic part of a wedding: technical logistics. I worked my way into the vendor conversations. Concerned father mode turned tactical. I told the lead technician I worried about internet outages. I asked about redundancy. He explained backup systems, file storage, where recordings are kept. I left him another tip and the same friendly line: make sure everything's saved. My daughter's memories are priceless to me. The man nodded and, later that night, Carla slipped him an envelope he couldn't refuse. The tech became our silent ally. He promised to save a copy of the feed locally and hand me the raw file at an agreed time. That file could expose a live confession or a pre-recorded piece of evidence. It would be messy and risky, but it would be real. Building the evidence next, I amplified what I already had. I hired a private investigator for a single night to follow Eduardo. The investigator delivered a short, clean video: Eduardo and the other woman leaving the hotel together, the embrace in the corridor, the secretive look he gave her. It was grainy, but unmistakable. He also found a lawyer who'd once represented Eduardo's business partner, someone who could confirm Eduardo's penchant for manipulation and control, buried in corporate leaks. I printed the files, put them in a neat folder labeled, "For Camila, if she wants the truth." I didn't deliver it yet. This was my nuclear option. The rehearsal dinner, first strike. The rehearsal dinner was the first real opportunity. The family gathered, old friends laughed, Camila was radiant. Eduardo moved around the room like a practiced host, charming everyone. My betrayal simmered under polite conversation. I kept my distance. I watched how Eduardo placed himself near the live stream tech, how he joked with the cameraman in a tone too familiar. If the tech could be persuaded, there was a 3-hour window the next day when all would be live and unedited. At dessert, I excused myself and slipped into the room where the tech sat. The man handed me a USB drive. I steady, raw feed, but I can only give you this before the stream starts. After that it's out on servers I can't touch. I wanted to weep and laugh and shake him all at once. My heart was a drum of triumph and terror. I tucked the drive into the inside pocket of my jacket and walked back to the table as if nothing had happened. The heart of the plan: I had 3 things to do the next day. Make sure Eduardo couldn't block or hide the live shock. Force a public confrontation in a way that couldn't be spun. Protect my daughter from the immediate damage after the reveal. Step 1. Ensure the live stream broadcast would show the footage. If I just played the investigator's clip from my phone during the ceremony, it could be dismissed as a prank. No, it had to be embedded into the feed, where the camera's angle and timestamps would match the groom's reactions. Step 2. I needed a voice to present the evidence that wouldn't be dismissed as a father's vendetta. I thought of the wedding officiant, an old pastor who knew me, who always spoke the truth gently. If he could be given the evidence and asked, privately, to make a pause in the ceremony to read something, it would give legitimacy. But asking the pastor in public was risky, so I invited him for coffee the evening before the wedding and slid the folder across the table. Discreet, firm, simple. He read, his color drained. He agreed to hold the pause if I gave him indisputable proof. Step 3 was delicate. Camila could not be humiliated, whether the truth came out or not. The plan was never to destroy her, it was to reveal Eduardo's deception and give her the choice. If she felt betrayed, she needed a way to step back without being alone. I prepared a small cadre of friends to be ready to take her away from the altar and to a private room if she needed it. A tender moment before the storm the night before the wedding, I found Camila alone in the garden. The moon painted her hair in silver. She was wearing an old sweatshirt, a relic from the past, and looked small and terrified. I sat beside her. For a long time we said nothing. When I finally spoke, it was not with rage but with hurt. "Did you send me that email?" I asked. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No, Dad. I never would. I would never, not after everything you did." Her hand found mine. I wanted to collapse into that moment and never leave. But the thought of Eduardo with another woman, the forged email, the lies, all of it demanded action. "Tomorrow," I said quietly, "you have a choice. Whatever you choose, I will stand with you, not over you." She leaned into me, and for an instant, I was the man she needed, steady, real. She trusted me enough to sleep. I watched her go inside, and I felt the weight of the coming day press against my ribs like a hand. Dawn of the wedding day. Dawn arrived in a brittle, bright way. I rehearsed the plan in my head like a speech. Carlos and a few trusted friends were in position. The tech had promised the file. The pastor would pause. The photographer had been quietly told to capture every moment. My heart raced, but my hands were steady. When I dressed, I put the USB drive next to my wallet, not to carry it openly, but to remind myself I held the truth. My mind cycled through possible disasters. Eduardo could threaten Camila, he could flee, the tech could be bought off at the last minute. Fear was a living thing, but so was resolve. The church filled with people, friends, colleagues, guests who had never known the undercurrents beneath education and champagne. Cameras hummed. Somewhere, the live stream had kicked on. I sat in the pew, looking at my daughter. She was beautiful. She smiled at me once, a small, fragile thing that made my throat close up. Then the music started. The ceremony began. The moment before the reveal, everything happened in a tight, cinematic heartbeat. The officiant started his blessing. The cameras rolled. Eduardo stood there like a man sure of his stage. I could have stood up then and walked to the microphone and screamed the truth. But I didn't. The plan required patience. Once it started, there was no turning back. Midway through the ceremony, the pastor paused, not for a scripted reading, but because I had handed him the most damning photograph, Eduardo kissing someone in the hotel hallway, time-stamped. He held the picture in his hand, his voice catching as he spoke into the quiet. "Before we proceed," he said, "there is something that must be said." He placed the photo on the lectern. A ripple went through the assembled faces. Eduardo's smile faltered. I felt the world narrow to the image on that paper, a frozen betrayal the pastor had put on display. Then the live stream tech cut to a split screen, the ceremony and a small inset. The tech, keeping his promise, cued the raw clip I'd been given. The officiant said, quietly, "There are questions that must be answered for the sake of truth." And then, live for everyone watching at home and in that church, the clip played. After the clip, silence like snow, you could hear a pin drop. The clip ran for 30 seconds. The camera angle matched the pastor's photo. The timestamp aligned with receipts the investigator had discovered. Eduardo's face went pale. He didn't speak. His composure cracked. Camila's eyes filled with disbelief, then raw pain. For a moment she did not know where to look, at me, who had fought to bring this to light, or at her husband-to-be, who had lied. 100 guests murmured. Phones recorded. Social media would explode in minutes. No spin doctor could explain away a live clip with multiple sources. Eduardo stepped forward, voice shaking, trying to explain. He called it a misunderstanding. He called the woman a client. His words were small in that charged air. I watched my daughter's face fold like paper. The pastor closed his eyes, then looked at me. I had expected gratitude. I found only the raw ache of consequences. Camila rose slowly from her place. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but steady. "I need to be alone," she said. She put a hand on Eduardo's shoulder, then moved away, the entire room watching. And then, as she walked past me, she paused, took my hand, and squeezed. It was the smallest of gestures. It meant everything. Guests filed out in hushed groups. Some cursed, some whispered prayers. Eduardo was surrounded by angry relatives. My phone exploded with notifications. On the live stream, comments poured in like a flood. I had won the first battle. The truth, raw, public, undeniable, had pierced a lie. But the victory tasted like ash. I had exposed Eduardo, yes. I had given my daughter the evidence she needed to see. But I hadn't destroyed him. Men like Eduardo survive public disgrace in strange ways. Lawsuits, denials, whispers of defamation. He could fight back hard. And most dangerous of all, this fight had changed Camila. For the first time in my adult life, she looked at me as something more than dad, as an active force in her life, someone who could act, not only provide. But I had also put her at the center of scandal. There would be consequences, family fractures, legal battles, maybe worse. As I walked out into the late afternoon sun, the USB drive in my pocket felt like a relic from a different war. I had a few wins, but the score was not settled. The next moves would be uglier, smarter, deadlier. The church had emptied into chaos. Guests spilled onto the street, some shouting, some crying, some frantically typing on their phones to spread the scandal before the live stream even finished uploading. Camila had been taken by her cousins into a quiet room at the back of the church. Eduardo remained at the altar, surrounded by his own family, his mask finally broken. His mother clung to him, whispering furiously, while his father barked at the wedding planner, at the pastor, at anyone who would listen. This was a setup. This is slander. I stood alone near the door, the USB drive heavy in my pocket, watching the storm I had unleashed. For one small, powerful moment, I allowed myself to breathe. The lie was broken. My daughter had seen the truth. That alone made everything worth it. But men like Eduardo don't crumble, they counterattack. And I felt it in my bones. This was just the beginning. The first retaliation. By evening, Eduardo's lawyers had already called me. Their tone was smooth, venom wrapped in velvet. "Mr. Giat," the voice said, "you will immediately retract the false accusations made today and issue a public apology. If not, we will file for defamation, emotional damages, and breach of contract for interfering with the ceremony. We will ruin you financially." I almost laughed. Ruin me financially? I was already ruined. Every cent had gone into that wedding. They had no idea I had nothing left to lose. But Camila, she was still on the line. Eduardo's family had wealth, connections, influence. They could drag her into their games, twist her story, make her look unstable. I didn't shout at the lawyer. I simply said, "Tell Eduardo I'm not retracting anything. The truth doesn't need apologies." Then I hung up. Family divided that night. My younger daughter, Mariana, called me, her voice trembling. "Pi, what have you done?" she cried. "Half the family is furious with you. They think you sabotaged Camila's wedding out of jealousy. Eduardo's parents are telling everyone you made up the videos. People online are calling you a bitter old man." Her words stabbed deeper than any lawyer's threat. "Mariana," I said quietly, "I didn't do this to hurt your sister. I did it to save her." Eduardo forged that email. He tried to erase me. He's a liar, and worse. I couldn't let her tie her life to him. Silence. Then, a whisper, "Do you have proof?" I looked at the USB drive, at the folder of documents the investigator had given me, at the receipts, the emails, the photos. "Yes," I said, "I have more than proof. I have his whole mask torn off. But the question is, will Camila want to see it?" Camila's choice. The next morning, Camila came to my house. She wasn't the glowing bride anymore. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen from crying, her dress replaced by simple jeans and a jacket. She looked like a soldier after battle. "Dad," she said softly, "I don't know what to think. What I saw yesterday, it broke me. But Eduardo says the video was edited. He says you hate him. He says you would do anything to keep me from being happy." She searched my face, desperate for an answer. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply handed her the folder. "This is everything," I said. "Emails he forged, hotel receipts, witnesses, the video. Read it, then decide for yourself." Her hands shook as she took it. She didn't thank me. She didn't hug me. She just left. Eduardo's shadow. By the third day, Eduardo's counterattack was in full swing. Articles appeared online painting him as the victim of a jealous father-in-law. Social media bots flooded my name with slander: toxic dad, control freak, man who ruined his daughter's happiness. One news outlet even claimed I had stalked Eduardo, that I had fabricated evidence using an investigator with a criminal record. The lie spread faster than the truth. My phone rang with anonymous threats. My truck tires were slashed, and one night, a brick smashed through my window with a note tied to it: "Stay out of our lives, old man." I stared at the shattered glass, the message clear. Eduardo was done playing defense. He was declaring war, a dangerous ally. But Eduardo had underestimated one thing: his own arrogance. 2 days later, I received a message from an unknown number. It was the wedding planner. "I want to talk," she wrote. "Not here. Too risky. Meet me at the old cafe by the station. Midnight." I almost didn't go. It reeked of a trap, but something about her message, hurried, fearful, felt real. At midnight, I found her in the corner of the cafe, sunglasses hiding her face despite the hour. She slid a small envelope across the table. Inside were copies of invoices, contracts, and recordings. Eduardo's handwriting, Eduardo's voice. Proof that he had not only faked the email to me but manipulated multiple parts of the wedding behind Camila's back. "Why are you giving me this?" I asked. She sipped her coffee, eyes darting around the empty cafe. "Because Eduardo doesn't just ruin women. He ruins everyone around him. He already threatened me, told me if I ever spoke about what I saw, he'd destroy my business. But I've had enough. If you're going after him, you won't do it alone." I leaned back, my pulse hammering. For the first time in days, I felt the tide shifting. Eduardo had declared war, but now, I had an ally inside his walls. The morning after the meeting with the wedding planner, I spread the new evidence across my kitchen table. Invoices, recordings, contracts, Eduardo's fingerprints on every lie. I had enough to bury him. But evidence alone doesn't win wars. Wars are won by who controls the story. And right now, Eduardo controlled mine. The internet was flooded with poison. Every time I opened my phone, there were new headlines: bitter father sabotaged daughter's wedding. Truck driver stages smear campaign against wealthy businessman. Family feud explodes into scandal. Even people I thought were friends crossed the street to avoid me. Mariana refused to pick up my calls. My own brothers told me I had gone too far. The only thing keeping me standing was the memory of Camila's hand squeezing mine as she walked past me in the church. She hadn't spoken the words, but I knew a part of her believed me, and that part was worth fighting for. Eduardo's legal blitz. On the 5th day, the lawsuit arrived. Thick envelope, gold-lettered law firm. Inside, pages accusing me of defamation, harassment, stalking, emotional sabotage. Eduardo's family demanded 500,000 reais in damages. $500,000. They might as well have asked for the moon. I took the papers, laughed bitterly, and tossed them into the fireplace. Flames licked at the edges, devouring the ink. But I knew better than to think it ended there. Eduardo wasn't trying to win in court. He was trying to bleed me dry, drown me in legal fees, destroy my credibility before I could destroy his. I needed a lawyer of my own, someone ruthless, someone who hated men like Eduardo as much as I did. That's when I remembered Dr. Helena Braga, an old contact from my trucking days. She'd once represented drivers against a corrupt logistics company and won big. Rumor said she hated wealthy heirs who thought the law was their toy. I called her. She answered on the third ring, her voice sharp as a blade. "Ricardo Giat, haven't heard your name in 10 years. Why are you calling me now?" "Because I'm in a war," I said, "and I need a general." The first meeting with Helena, when I showed her the folder of evidence, Helena didn't blink. She flipped through the documents with a predator's calm, then leaned back in her chair. "Your problem isn't proof," she said. "Your problem is optics. The public thinks you're a bitter father who hates his son-in-law. That's the story Eduardo sold them. You need to flip the narrative, make them see you as the father protecting his daughter from a con artist." She tapped the folder. "These documents, they are bullets, but bullets only matter if you know where to aim." Her plan was brutal: leak the receipts to a trusted journalist she knew, someone impossible to buy. Use the live stream clip again, but this time alongside the hotel receipts, and forge email headers, showing timestamps. File a counter lawsuit, not just defamation, but fraud, coercion, and emotional abuse against Camila. I hesitated. I don't want to destroy my daughter in the process. Helena's eyes softened, just a little. "Ricardo, you're not destroying her. You're cutting the strings of the man who already tied her like a puppet." Eduardo strikes harder. The very next day, Eduardo escalated. When I returned home, I found the door forced open, drawers overturned, papers scattered, my safe cracked. The only thing missing? The folder of evidence. I cursed, rage exploding in my chest. Eduardo had found out. Maybe the wedding planner had been followed. Maybe my phone had been tapped. But then I noticed something strange. The USB drive, hidden in a tin behind the coffee canister, was untouched. Eduardo thought he had stolen everything. But the most damning piece, the raw live stream clip, was still mine. That night, another brick came through my window. This time, no note, just silence. The kind of silence that says, "We're watching you." I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark with a baseball bat across my lap, waiting for footsteps that never came. Camila's breaking point. 2 days later, Camila showed up again. This time, she was furious. "Why are reporters calling me at work?" she shouted, slamming her hands on my kitchen table. "Why is Eduardo saying you're blackmailing him?" I held my ground. "Because Eduardo is scared. Because the truth is closing in." She paced, her face twisted with conflict. "Dad, I saw the clip. I saw the photos. But he swears it was manipulated. He says you paid people to fake documents. He says." "Camila." I grabbed her shoulders gently. "Look at me. Do you really believe I would spend my life savings, risk everything, just to ruin your happiness? Or do you believe I'm trying to protect you?" Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't answer. She just shook her head, torn between two worlds. Before leaving, she whispered, "If you're wrong, I'll never forgive you. But if you're right, I'll never forgive myself." The door closed behind her. My heart cracked a little more. The trap Helena called me that night. "Ricardo, listen. Eduardo thinks he won because he stole your folder. That's good. He's arrogant. He believes the war is over, which means now is the time to strike. Publicly, live." "How?" I asked. "We'll set up an interview. A respected journalist, live broadcast. You walk in as the broken father, not angry, not vengeful. Just a man with nothing to lose, holding the last proof in his pocket. And when Eduardo tries to dismiss you, we play the clip, the receipts, the email header, all in real time." I hesitated. My stomach churned at the thought of Camila watching her life explode on television. But then I remembered her tears, her whisper, "If you're right, I'll never forgive myself." This wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about ripping off Eduardo's mask so thoroughly that even Camila couldn't deny it. I agreed. The interview was set for Friday night. The night before, on Thursday evening, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the USB drive between my hands. Memories swirled, Camila's childhood drawings taped to the fridge, her laughter echoing through the halls, the promise she once made, "You'll walk me down the aisle, Dad." And now, instead of walking her down the aisle, I was preparing to walk her into the fire. Outside, rain hammered the roof. Inside, my heart beat like a war drum. I didn't know if tomorrow would save her or destroy her. But one thing I knew for certain: tomorrow night, live, in front of the whole country, Eduardo's empire of lies would burn. Friday morning, the whole city buzzed with the fallout of the ruined wedding. Talk shows replayed the live stream clip endlessly, pausing and dissecting Eduardo's expression, my words, Camila's tears. Everyone had an opinion. Some called me a hero. Others said I was a lunatic. But tonight, on national television, there would be no more speculation. Tonight, truth or lie would be carved into stone. Eduardo's last card at noon. My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ricardo." Eduardo's voice slithered through the line. Calm, measured, dripping arrogance. "Before you embarrass yourself tonight, let's speak like men." I didn't answer. He continued, "You think this is about your daughter? No, this is about power. And power, Ricardo, doesn't care about evidence. Power decides what's true. I have it. You don't. Then his tone hardened. But I'm generous. Walk away tonight, stay quiet, and I'll make sure Camila never knows the full extent of what you've done. Stay silent, and you keep what's left of your reputation. Resist me, and I will bury you, legally, financially, physically. I let the silence stretch until I could hear him breathing, impatient. Then I said, Eduardo, I drove trucks for 30 years. I've eaten cold soup on the road, slept in freezing cabins, broken my back to pay for my daughter's lives. I've already been buried 100 times by life, and every single time, I climbed out. You've never tasted dirt. Tonight, you will. I hung up before he could reply. Camila's visit 2 hours before the interview. Camila came to my house. She looked exhausted, pale, trembling, her eyes ringed with shadows. Dad, she whispered, why are you doing this on TV? Why can't this stay private? Because Eduardo made it public the moment he forged that email, I said. He tried to erase me. He tried to isolate you. If I fight in silence, he wins. But if I fight under the lights, in front of everyone, he can't hide. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. If you're wrong, this will destroy us. I reached into my pocket and pressed the USB drive into her hand. Then don't trust me. Watch it yourself. If I'm wrong, I'll walk away. If I'm right, then you'll know who Eduardo really is. Her fingers curled around the drive. She didn't promise anything. She just left, clutching the truth like it was poison. The television studio buzzed with controlled chaos, lights, cameras, technicians rushing. Helena was already there, her sharp eyes cutting across the room like knives. She gave me a nod that said, this is it. Across the hall, Eduardo arrived in a tailored suit, his smile polished, arm hooked around his mother's. Cameras flashed, journalists swarmed. He thrived under the attention, shaking hands, posing as the victimized groom. When our eyes met, his smile twitched. Just a fraction, enough for me to know he wasn't as confident as he pretended. The host, a seasoned journalist named Alberto Rios, approached us both. His voice carried the gravity of decades. Gentlemen, he said, tonight, the nation is watching. You will each have your say. But remember, live television has no rewind. I nodded. Eduardo smirked. Live the countdown echoed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Red light on. Alberto's voice filled the studio. Good evening, Brazil. Tonight, we bring you an exclusive. A wedding torn apart, accusations of betrayal, a father and a groom locked in a war of truth. With us are Ricardo Giurt, father of the bride, and Eduardo Lacerda, the groom. The camera turned. My heart thundered, but I sat tall, hands folded, steady as stone. Eduardo spoke first, his tone honeyed. This has been the most painful week of my life. I love Camila. I wanted nothing more than to make her my wife. But her father, Ricardo, has waged a campaign of lies, sabotaging everything because he cannot accept losing control over his daughter. He fabricated evidence, manipulated media, and destroyed the happiest day of our lives. He looked directly into the camera, eyes shining with false sincerity. I forgive him, truly, but the truth must be told. The studio audience murmured, sympathy dripping in his favor. Alberto turned to me. Mr. Giurt, your response? I leaned forward. My voice was low but steady. I'm not here to destroy Eduardo. I'm here to protect my daughter. Eduardo forged an email to cut me out of her life. He cheated on her. He lied to her. And when I found the truth, he tried to erase me. I brought evidence. And tonight, I'll show it. Gasps. The tension in the room crackled like electricity. The reveal. Alberto gestured. Mr. Giurt, if you have proof, now is the time. I pulled out the USB drive. My hands didn't shake. I handed it to the technician. The screen behind us lit up. First, the forged email, its header showing Eduardo's IP address. Then, hotel receipts with Eduardo's signature, dated during his engagement. Finally, the raw live stream clip, Eduardo's lover stepping into frame, his voice unmistakable. The studio fell silent. Deadly silent. Eduardo's smile shattered. He lunged forward, shouting, "That's fake. That's fake. This is manipulation." But the host, Alberto, cut him off coldly. Our technical team verified these files this afternoon. They are authentic. The audience erupted, shouts, gasps, applause. Social media exploded in real time. Hashtags flooding the screen. #Ricardo was right. #Eduardo exposed. Eduardo's mask was gone. The collapsed sweat poured down his face. His voice cracked. Camila knows the truth. She knows this is your doing. And then, like fate itself was watching, the studio doors open.